What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Hoops Corner. I'm your host, Peter Tran, and on the line, the Iceman himself, Josh Cohen. How you doing?
Doing well, thanks. It was a very fun Olympic, day today with the two games. I didn't think the first game would be topped, but they did it. And Serbia and the USA was a phenomenal game, obviously, and it was one of the best games maybe in Olympic history, honestly.
I mean, wow, I did not expect that type of intro from you. Didn't even let me introduce our guest or anything. You
I'm
just
sorry. I'm sorry. I was
just going
excited
straight
about the
into
games
Olympic
today.
basketball
I'm very
talk.
happy to get basketball. So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, come on, man. Our special guest today, Sean Woodley of the Locked On Raptors podcast. Sean, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. And yeah, that was some good Olympic basketball today. It was that Serbia US game. I can't remember the last time I felt like as clenchy as I did like as I was watching that game. It was nuts. It was like it's been since like the Raptors were playing high leverage playoff games deep into the playoffs like 5+ years ago. It was nice to feel again.
Wow, not even Team Canada is getting you to feel that way anymore. Eh? Like Team Canada going bronze for the World Cup last year just didn't do it.
I mean, the World Cup's fine. It was cool. It was nice. I had a good time, but yeah, the Olympics are kind of a different animal. And watching Nikola Jokic and Bogdan Bogdanovic try to take down all of the old men who I've watched for the last 15 years was pretty damn cool. I'm a little sad the States won, honestly, but I think even if we don't get a good gold medal game, which I'm not sure we will, France, as much as yes, they beat Germany and Canada, I still think France is kind of maybe a fraud team. But even if that game's not great, we got the semifinal, which is pretty sweet.
So, at what point in that game did you think that the USA was absolutely going to win and Serbia had no chance?
I think it was probably was it the LeBron like lefty layup and finish? Like I think it tied it at like 84 or something like that. It was like, okay, yeah, it's over. I mean, Steph being as red hot as he was throughout the entire game kind of always made me feel like, oh, okay, like some 2016 Warriors stuff is about to happen with Steph, and that's always kind of an inevitable feeling too. But it did feel like they were going to do it. The other moment too was when I think it was Dobrich missed the wide open three off like the broken play, and I was like, oh, okay, that was your shot. You
Yeah.
missed it. You failed, dude. Go back to EuroLeague. You're cooked.
For me, it was a 6 point possession, honestly. Like when Katie hit that
Yeah,
three, and there
yeah,
was probably a
yeah,
moving screen on that play, and then Booker hit the out of
mm,
timeout play, out of timeout three.
yeah,
So
yeah. It was a great game. Like exactly what you would have wanted from Serbia US. And I'm glad Serbia decided to not be a bunch of pumpkins against the States again. That was nice. The group stage game was such a letdown. It was nice to have a good sequel.
They're just playing possum. It was. I think that was
Yeah.
just like a gamesmanship kind of move in the first
Yeah. I
round robin. Yeah.
don't think you're wrong at all. Yeah.
I mean, I guess we started with USA, but like the whole point of this is just to talk about Canada, right? And how
Yeah.
I mean how disappointing this team was. I think I don't know if it was everybody, but at least Canadian expectations were that there would be some sort of medal here, right? At least like some sort of bronze, if not silver or unlikely gold. But I mean,
Mhm.
how disappointing was it to not even have a chance to get to a medal round? Like, were we really needing Zach Edey that badly? Is there a real chance to go forward in 2028? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do we just have to keep our chins up high and keep just look forward at this point?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's disappointing for sure. I don't know if you can call it like an outright failure necessarily because like you lost to the host nation in a single elimination game. Like that's going to happen. Yeah, they looked shook to start that game and it felt like a 2015 Raptors game 1 like in the first like 10 12 minutes of that game, but I think it's tough. They did exactly what we wanted them to do in the group stage, right? I don't think we can kind of like erase that when we think about the tournament as a whole. They went 3-0 in the toughest group and looked pretty good doing it. And they did it while Jamal Murray was very clearly not himself, and that's a whole other thing. I'm sure Nuggets fans aren't like stoked about what they've seen with Jokic having to give everything against the States and then Murray not looking so good. But I think considering the circumstances, considering that like they brought the best team they realistically I think could have outside of Edie, but again, like the Edie, Wiggins, like those guys, it was just not in the cards with the contract situations, all of that. I don't think they ever expected to really have Zach Edey, and so they had the best roster that they realistically had available to them. I think their matchup issues against a team like France were kind of predictable. The front court issues were always going to be the sort of Achilles heel of that team. And I think as much as it's a bummer that they lost, I don't think it's some sort of grand failure of the program. I don't think it means 2028 can't be something great. Shea's still going to be around and at his peak. You're still going to have, a young wave of guys like Shaden Sharp is on the way, and a whole bunch of other dudes. Ben Mathurin on down the line. Andrew Nemhard will be, 4 years more mature and all of that. And hopefully Zach Edey's around, although it will be a contract year for him, potentially 4 years from now.
You're thinking ahead.
So just keep an eye on that. And yeah, hope that the 7'9" guy who's going to Florida, Olivier Roux, is ready to play or something like that. But yeah, I think they brought the best team that they could have. They lost in a single elimination game after winning in the group stage. If anything, I'm just more mad about previous missing the Olympics examples, like the Tokyo thing, losing in that last chance tournament when they hosted it, paid a whole bunch of money to host it. That was a huge disappointment. Not making it in 2016 when they had to play a Grievous Vasquez-less Venezuela team and lost. Like, those are the ones where it's like, oh man, they look so shook in their first Olympics. Well, it didn't have to be their first Olympics, but it was because of all those previous failures. That said, I think the last couple of years, the World Cup kind of makes it a little bit easier to stomach. And I do think there's plenty to look forward to for the next 4 years for sure.
I also feel like we got really unlucky with how everything shook
Yeah.
out before the game and the fact that Rudy Gobert didn't start for France.
Right.
Because I feel like if he actually started that game, we would have won just based on how
Yeah.
Canada attacks on offense. And then the fact that
Mhm.
he played 2 or 3 minutes in that game and they played the ideal lineup against us or sort of forced into it based on whatever happened with Rudy's finger, whether he got surgery or not. And they're pushing these big lineups where they're playing these 6'7" power forwards that were just overpowering us on offense.
Mhm.
If Rudy was playing in that game, playing drop defense, and we'd have a much easier time not going against switching defenses the entire game, I feel like we would have
Mhm.
won and we'd be in a much different position right now. But that's the way it goes
Yeah.
sometimes.
Single elimination basketball, man, and FIBA is an entirely different animal, right? Like, it's just a totally different sport than the NBA. And, Canada was always going to be more susceptible to the FIBA of it all, too, just because of the fact that most of their guys are NBA guys. And, shout out Matthias Lesor and Gershon Yabusele. I was in on Matthias Lesor 2017 draft. Put it down. I was in. I'm glad to be finally vindicated 7 years later.
Don't the Knicks have his rights for Lesort?
That's very possible, and he does seem like a Knicks ass player, considering just the he's all elbows and muscles and just meanness. He'd fit. He'd be better than Precious Achua.
Hey! This is a pro Precious podcast. Okay, come on.
I love Precious.
Let's
I love
go
him,
on.
but come on. He's got his issues.
I mean, yeah, but whatever. Fuck
They
Precious.
do need center depth, so bring him over. Yabusele needs to be on a team. Like he's really trimmed down. He
Hold
actually
on,
looks
can
really
we-
good on defense too.
Please refer to him as 2024 Charles Barkley because he's nothing else but the modern Barkley, man. That guy's incredible right now.
Did he miss today?
He's playing like it's Barkley on the dream team for France. It's pretty rad. I'm happy for him. I hated him when he's in the NBA because he was on the Celtics, and I have to hate the Celtics. But I'm glad I can root for him on a France team going up against the States in a big kind of way against a bunch of Celtics guys, no less. It's perfect.
Are you rooting for France on Sunday?
100%. Talking about
Definitely.
Are you not?
I don't like this French team, man. I don't know. There's something about them.
No,
It's
no,
probably
without
because they
I mean,
Gobert, it's
yeah,
a
Rudy
whole different
Gobert
thing.
does like cut into the whole like
yeah.
likability thing. There's no doubt. But he's not playing now. He's not even in the mix. So
Exactly.
it's
They're way more
fine.
likable without him for sure. They actually play a pretty good style of play, and
True.
like defensively, they're actually really solid. So
They're nasty, yeah.
Yeah.
And like Isaiah Cordinier being like, I'm gonna have an out of body experience now, deal with it is a pretty cool thing too.
You think he'll get signed to somebody? Someone who needs guard depth a bit? Decent enough shooter?
Honestly, I doubt it. Like I think these guys, I do think a lot of these guys in Europe, and I think we saw this with Sasha Vezenkov too. Like, would you rather be like the best player on your European team or like the 12th man on an NBA team and have to live in Sacramento? Like, I'm probably taking the be the best player on a European team
True.
yeah,
all day long, and I bet that's probably similar for those guys
I mean,
too.
and
Pat
making
Bev is.
similar money at the same time too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Vezenkov's making more money now for Olympiacos than he would have been in the NBA, or like he totally offset all of his losses by walking away from everything, which again speaks to how much some guys don't like North America. Can I blame them? Not really.
I mean, yeah. If you're willing to just walk away from 7 million and just let the Raptors completely off the hook, you must really like it back home. It's,
Yeah,
that's all it
man.
is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's probably as good of a transition as we need to get to real Raptors talk in the middle of August,
Yeah.
because, I mean, what else is there to talk about? So, Sean, basically with Toronto, building around the young guys, I'm talking about Barrett, Quickley, Barnes. Is there something else that, the front office needs to do to, like, complete this team? Are we looking at
Hmm.
keeping Pirtle long term? Because he seems to be on a different trajectory than everyone else on the team, realistically.
Mhm.
And, like, focusing on young guys like Davion Mitchell, who they just got.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be two things at once, right? And I do think Pirtle being on the team is actually pretty important for developing the young guys. Like we saw last year, right? When he wasn't in the lineup, they just like didn't know how to play basketball. And it's not good for development to be sort of playing rudderless, planless basketball. I think Pirtle kind of gives them a lot of structure on both ends of the floor. And I don't think they're going to be in a rush to move him. I don't think they should be. I know there's this sort of wing of the fan base that wants to go be as bad as possible, try to get Cooper Flag. I don't think the team wants to do that. I think that's really how they've ever been wired. And I frankly think in a flattened lottery odds world where the worst record gets you a 14% chance at the number one pick and a very good chance of being the Pistons where you fall to fifth every year. I think what the Raptors are doing, which seems to be, we're going to roll it out. We're going to see what we got. We're going to try to be competitive for the first little bit. And then we can kind of reevaluate around the trade deadline. If we trade Bruce Brown, if we trade even like a Kelly Olynyk or something like that, they can kind of pull the chute and, slide down the lottery odds a little bit to like the seventh, eighth range where they were when they got Scotty Barnes. I think that's kind of their view on it. And I do think like there's an element of they already got their lottery luck in Scotty Barnes. And I think they fully believe that he can be the best player on a very good team. And I think that's what kind of the goal needs to be in the age of parity is it's not necessarily, build a no doubt this is one of the two or three best teams in the NBA. I think the realistic thing in a world where mostly getting the types of players who drive championships is all luck and happenstance. Build a really good team, do what you can to compete, and then sort of use that position to, turn it into something better. That's what the Raptors did with Kawhi Leonard, right? They were really good, and then they used where they were to become excellent. And I think that's kind of the plan here too. So I think they're going to try to be play-in-ish this year, maybe slightly below. It kind of depends on whether the Hornets figure their crap out or if Josh Giddey can be like a reasonable lead guard for the Bulls. I think it's possible the Raptors just are the 10th best team in the East just by default. And they're in the play-in, but I think that can be a good thing if they're playing good basketball and the important guys on the team prove that there's stuff to grow on here. I think that can be a totally fine thing. Whether they have to add more talent, yeah, like at some point they'll have to do that. My guess is they try to do that via trade versus try to play the lottery game. And if they get lucky in the lottery game, then great. Maybe they don't have to make a trade and they just have a deeper roster and they can kind of go forward with what they have, plus whoever they take next summer.
So sort of on that note, talking about what we did with, DeMar turning that into Kawhi, I wanted to get
Mhm.
into talking about RJ Barrett and how
Sure.
do you think the Raptors should proceed with him because he is extension eligible, and we're going to need to make a decision on him in the next 2 years. And I think his value has gone up in the last year or so. with how he has played for the
Totally.
Raptors. He's been extremely efficient. I was not a believer coming into it, obviously, but
Mhm.
he's been a big plus for the Raptors so far. And he's the type of player where going into the cap situation that all teams are going into right now, if you extend him on a big number
Mhm.
and make him your second best player in terms of, the cap, paying him
Sure.
$45 million a year, or whatever it's going to be, then you might eventually get stuck. So what do you think they should do with him going forward? And what do you see his outlook being?
I think a lot of it depends on what we see from him this year, right? Like they're not super under the gun yet. The extension thing is a year, I think, from now, and they have runway after that. If they want to play it all the way to the end of his contract, they can do that. I think with Barrett, excuse me, I think the thing that it comes down to for me is the defense. I think the offense is probably going to stick. The way he's played with the Raptors, the way he's kind of trimmed the fat from his game, gotten rid of all the stuff that didn't work with the Knicks and just kind of streamlined into being this, kind of off-ball finisher type, really good cutter, bull in transition, gets to the rim with reckless abandon, like all that type of stuff. I think that can stick. I think that's just like who he is now on offense. I hope they don't try to expand it too much because I think that's where you get into trouble. But if this is just who he is, he's a 22 point a game guy on 62% true shooting. You can work with that. And if he's a good defender, then that makes things a whole lot easier. The problem is he's not a good defender. Ask Matthias Lesor if he thinks he's a good defender. He's not. He was really, really rough on that end. I think probably the worst he's been in his career during his time with the Raptors. And now, look, the team was a mess. They'd had four different iterations of the team throughout the season. They did not have any sort of defensive structure, especially after Jakob Poeltl went down in the last 20 games. And so I'm willing to sort of go into this season with open eyes and say, hey, like maybe there's a slightly above league average defender here in RJ Barrett. If he is, then he probably becomes a piece that they are okay paying. And I don't think it'll take 45 million bucks a year to get Barrett locked in long term. I think it's probably like Quickley money. And frankly, if you have a bunch of guys, behind your Max Star and Scotty Barnes who are good players making Immanuel Quickley money, I think that's going to be kind of an interesting team build model going forward as the cap goes up and the second aprons are a thing and having lots of max contracts is going to be hard to juggle. Like those guys are going to be well below what the max is. And I think that's where Barrett probably settles in himself as well. And so, I think there's a world in which he's on this team when they're good next and they, swing a trade for some sort of upgrade, maybe on the wing, to sort of push RJ to the two. Maybe it's for a big using Jakob Poeltl and stuff going out to sort of better situate themselves in the front court, whatever it is. Or there's a world in which they use RJ as the trade going out, right? And it's RJ plus stuff becomes your avenue to getting like a real sort of two-way wing type or, a two guard who can play in backcourts with him, with Immanuel Quickley, or some kind of stretch big who could fit nicely with Scotty Barnes. I think this year, what he does on defense in particular, obviously the offense has to continue being close to what it was at least last year, which I feel good about. Again, if the defense is there, then I think his sort of long-term outlook with the team becomes a lot more interesting and probably a lot more sort of sure in terms of, where he's going to be. I think they'll certainly invest in him if the defense is there and he does prove he can be like a two-way wing type.
Is he that bad on defense? Like I know you're saying that he's
Yeah,
like that
man.
subpar, but is he like every time I see him, he doesn't look that poor. Where is he just letting people blow by him constantly?
Is he a worse
My
passer or
thing
defender?
Oh,
His
passer.
passing took strides. It took strides with the
It
Raptors.
did, but
Like
it's still
he
not
was
great.
making like live dribble, like cross court passes. Like he's not amazing, but he makes like pretty basic, sort of rudimentary reads, and that's not a bad thing by any means. He doesn't turn the ball over a ton. I think I don't know. His defense last year was super disappointing to me. I thought his just sort of it's weird. On offense, he's like this bowling ball who just like guys bounce off of him as he's going towards the rim. It's almost the inverse on defense, where he just cannot hold position against really anybody. Strong big wings totally move him aside. He can't really stay in front of smaller guards laterally either. Like he is kind of, I think, in between positions a little bit. I think he should be long term the two guard for this team. I think that's the ideal landing spot for him. If they can find a two-way wing to slide in between Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett, I think that's like the ideal vision for me. I think he's just like a little miscast as all right, dude, go and guard the best wing on the other team. I don't think he's really got the juice for that. He's had moments where he's done it, like second year with the Knicks, I think really stood out as a year where he was decent at that. But I think he took a big step back with the Raptors. And, again, like lots of good things with RJ Barrett. I'm certainly happy he's on the team, but I was pretty unimpressed. And the numbers suggest that the defense was an absolute disaster when he was out there too. So, yeah, I think he's definitely a better passer than defender at this point. And the defense has a chance to be kind of the thing that is the swing skill that either keeps him in Toronto long term or has him sort of cycled out for someone else in that spot.
What if he's like Rudy Gay back in the day, where he just steps up in the big lineups or big matchups? Sorry, only games up for like LeBron, Kawhi, Giannis, whoever else you want to put on this guy, Jason Tatum, I guess, whatever.
That'd be great. I mean, if he can go and guard all those, the problem is like every team has those guys now. The league's so damn good. There's just like no off nights, and I think that's another part of it too, right? But maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I'm seeing what I want to see on the defense, and like I'd want to see him play better defense. But it just. To me, and look, the whole team sucked at defense last year. It was a really, really tough watch. They had no plan. They had no like philosophy. It felt like it was just kind of like, go stop the other team from scoring, and they didn't. And so, I think fresh start with a full season with the same team and the same system. Maybe we see a better defensive RJ. But like I said, I think that's kind of the skill that's going to keep him around or make him someone that they look to move in the interest of an upgrade down the line.
So on that note, in 2 years from now,
Yeah.
if we keep this core together with Quickley, Barnes, Barrett, and then we build out with some young guys who hopefully hit, what do you see this team's identity ultimately being? Are we going to be a run and gun fast type of team, or do you think that we're going to build around defense? How do you actually see this core fitting together? And what do you think that, going into a game against the Raptors on game 47 of the regular season, what are teams going to fear?
I think they have a chance of having like a pretty nice looking offense, even this year. Like I think if Grady Dick starts, which I think is probably what's going to happen, I think they have a chance to be like a top half of the league offense. And I think maybe the sort of what you're looking for, at least for this version of the team, I do think they'll have to upgrade defensively down the line in some way, shape, or form to be a really serious team. But I think the sort of vision is what the Kings were the last couple seasons, right? Really good offense. Defense isn't great, but just kind of gets by, and the offense just kind of carries them. I think as Quickley improves, as Scotty gets more comfortable in the sort of lead guy role, as Grady Dick, I think, kind of comes into his own. And I'm a big believer that he's going to take a big jump in year 2 and then in year 3 as well. Like I think that there's like a real player there in Grady Dick. I think they have a chance of being like a pretty nice looking, fluid sort of intricate offense. Darko Rajakovic has a lot of interesting stuff he runs. They like to kind of do a little bit of like the Utah Jazz thing from back in the day, where it was like, let's just put teams in the grinder. We're going to run something over here, and then we're going to run something over here. And then 20 seconds into the possession, you're dead. We have a good shot, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think that kind of is the vision here with like all the playmaking and passing and in theory, movement shooting they're going to have. Jacoby Walters, another guy who figures into this as a movement shooter. I think they want to run a pretty sophisticated offense, and hopefully the defensive talent can kind of come along. As it stands right now, I think Scotty Barnes, very nice help defender. I wish he was a better on-ball defender. It would solve a lot of their problems, but he's just not really there. I think Jakob Poeltl's a really nice rim protector. Like he's not incredible. He's not the best center in the world. He's not a top 10 center like Masai Ujiri wants to tell us he is, but I think he's a good center, and I think he gives you defensive structure and integrity, and that Scotty Yak front court can be the backbone of a passable defense. I'm not thinking they're going to be passable this year. I think they're going to be pretty bad on that end, but I do think offensively, like they're leaning into the offense first wave that's hitting the league right now. And frankly, having watched them play offense for the last 5 years and had to talk about it every day, I'm very excited for some fun, cool offense where they actually, score some baskets. It's going to be a novel concept, but I'm in for it.
That was a miserable time. Sorry.
Yeah, man.
To me, that's a rough 5 years to look back on. After that championship team, that's brutal.
Yeah. Even when they were good, like the 48 win team, like it wasn't like pretty offense. It was kind of just like offense by force and offensive rebounding like maniacs that got them there. So yeah, I'm excited to just like run some sets, get some easy looks, maybe take like a requisite number of threes, hit some of them even. I'm a big proponent of not being totally awful on offense. It's going to be a nice thing, and I think it could look pretty good as soon as this season.
Yeah, and have real spacing on the floor instead of a bunch of guys standing in the same areas like we have with Team 6 9.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I was a believer in the viability of Pascal plus Scotty. They did not have the right pieces around Pascal and Scotty for that to ever
Yep.
work, and like that whole thing died the day they traded for a center who doesn't shoot outside of 8 feet. So yeah, it breaks my heart a little bit as a big Pascal guy, and I just think the raw talent of those two guys was pretty interesting, and I think actually this past year they started to figure it out a little bit even before like the OG trade. I think they really did kind of get something going with those two and the way they worked off of one another, but just the fit. I think OG was a tough fit with those guys as someone who likes to kind of pound the ball and all that. So, yeah, fresh start, clean slate. I'm excited for a new version of the team, even if they might not be especially good.
Wow, I like the optimism. So I don't know. We've talked about Scotty a lot. He's clearly the centerpiece of this whole team going forward, right? You got this nice extension, 5 years, 225. How did you feel about that? I feel like it's kind of expected after he wins Rookie of the Year, and
Yeah.
you sort of build everything around this guy, right? Like all the marketing campaigns are behind Scotty. He's literally everywhere around Toronto when you like walk around. Were you expecting Quickley to get something to go along with that, like another 5 year deal?
Yeah, I don't think I expected it to be as rich as it was. Like the 175 took me back a little bit. I think I was in the range of it's probably going to end up being like 5 years, 150. But honestly, like I know there was like some outcry about that deal. I think that totally misses what's coming with the cap and the new TV deal and just the way contracts signed this summer are going to age. Like I think all the deals signed this summer for star players are going to age wonderfully because look, Immanuel Quickley, I think as of right now is the 14th highest paid point guard in the league. He's going to be like the 25th highest paid point guard in the league within a couple of years just based on the way things are going. And 35 million bucks is going to be just like it's going to be just like regular, maybe slightly above average starter money in a few years. And I think that's going to age really nicely. I think at the end of his deal, he's going to be making 35 million bucks, and a lot of the sort of contemporaries of his in the league are going to be upwards of 50. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be making like $80 million by the time his next contract comes around. And yes, he's certainly much better than Quickley, but I think just the way the market's going, the deals signed this summer are going to age really nicely. And I think Scotty's is the same as well. And then, a few years down the line, this is all cyclical, right? But I do think we're kind of at that beginning of that cap raising, sort of era we're going to see where anything signed this summer is going to look like a bargain and agents are going to look stupid for, locking in 5 years when, there might have been, more to be had down the line.
You see Quickly as being the X factor of the core, though? Because I feel like he has to get up to a certain level for this team's core with Barrett and Barnes, obviously, to be a
Sure.
potential top four team in the Eastern Conference going forward. Do you see him as needing to be maybe at like the Kyle Lowry prime level where he's between maybe top 4 to 7 type of point guard in the NBA? Because right now he's around 15, I would say, right? 15 to 20. So I feel like he has to be
Yeah,
at least the
somewhere there.
top
Yeah.
10, right?
Yeah, and look, I've been sort of like on my show last June or July after Fred VanVleet walked, I was pounding the table for the Raptors to trade for Immanuel Quickley. I think he rocks. I am super bullish on him. I'm probably on like the top 5% of believers in Immanuel Quickley. I think he's going to be really good. I think the thing that got me last year was it wasn't anything to do with the scoring, and the scoring is great. The pull-up shooting is awesome. It was so nice to have pull-up shooting from the guard spot after watching Dennis Schroeder play for my basketball team for the first half of the year. It was beautiful. It was just like, oh, okay, this is just so refreshing. This is like pull-up three-point shooting is the skill that makes point guard careers in the NBA, and Quickly does that and does it as well as just about anybody. That's great. The thing that really I think just sort of added to my optimism about him last year was how quickly, no pun intended, I do that every damn time. But how like he just seemed to get the point guard stuff right away. And that's not an easy thing, right? He was like a gunner and asked to just score basically off the bench for the Knicks. He gets the keys to the Raptors, maybe a little bit of growing pains here and there for the first month or so. But once the team settled down, once the trades were done, he just looked like a point guard. He looked like a table setter. He looked like a guy who had the finger on the pulse of the game. And that's not something you can really quantify necessarily, but just watching him, he is one of those guys. And I'm a sucker for point guards. Kyle Lowry is my favorite player of all time. Love Kyle Lowry. Chris Paul, I'm like one of the few people who doesn't think Chris Paul is tedious and annoying. I think he's wrong. I think he's amazing.
You and I are two of the only people left.
Man, brutal.
Hell yeah, man. It's just like respecting adults who know how to play basketball. Yeah, like a point guard who just has that sort of like court awareness is just one of my favorite types of guys. And I was totally sold on Quickley's knack for that type of stuff. I mean, he averaged 6.8 assists a game for the Raptors last year, and I think put up 1.2 turnovers. Like it's like Jose Calderon level assist to turnover ratio stuff. He is like the ball security's there. He's got to learn some stuff. He's got to get better at not picking up his dribble too soon. He's got to get better or sort of rediscover the floater that kind of lost. He kind of lost a little bit down the stretch last year, but he shot over 70% at the rim last year with the Raptors. He gets paint touches whenever he wants because he's so fast. And I think his drive and kick stuff is really good. I think he's going to be, I was on another podcast yesterday and he asked me for a bold prediction. And my bold prediction was Quickley is going to be top 5 in the league in assists per game this season. Ooh. I really think I believe that much in his ability to kind of set the table. And the threat of his shooting is only going to amplify that too, right? As teams worry about him pulling up. Okay, now you're sending 2 to the ball. Great. I'm going to slip this to Jakob Poeltl on the short roll, and we're going to have good things happen out of that. I just think there's like a really great sort of bit of awareness and feel for the point guard job. And you don't just like learn that like it's an innate thing, right? You can't just like pick that up willy nilly. Like that's just in him. And I think, the fact that he got the chance to kind of show he had that in him last year was really nice. And I'm looking forward to a full season where he's not passing to Jordan Nwora and Malik Williams to try to sort of juice those assist numbers, because it was a rough team context that he did it all in last year too. If he's in a better team context, I really think the sky's the limit for the sort of point guard side of his game, and the scoring will come along, I'm sure. It already kind of has. I'm super in. I'm very, very bullish on Immanuel Quickley, and I do think he can be that top 10 point guard in the NBA. I think he can be like a fringe all-star type in the Eastern Conference. It's a loaded position. There's point guards all over the place. They're all really good, but I think Quickley is kind of slept on as like a serious breakout candidate this year. I think there's a chance he's in like the most improved conversation. I really do. He's just like, he's got it to me. He just kind of has it as a point guard. And I'm very in. If you haven't figured that out from the last 5 minute soliloquy I've just put out here, I'm super in on Immanuel Quickley.
Well, damn. We're a very pro Immanuel Quickley podcast. So this is,
hell yeah.
This works. Okay, aside from Quickley, obviously, and, aside from all the major guys that we've talked about, which young players on this roster are you like looking forward to watch this year to see how they develop? Maybe aside from Grady. I think everyone in Toronto has high expectations for Grady, so take him out of the picture.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, like Jacoby Walter, it wasn't like the guy I really wanted with that pick. It's sad. I really wanted DeRon Holmes. It sucks he tore his Achilles. Like, what a bummer of a just like thing to happen in summer league of all places. Like, it sucks. But Jacoby Walter, I think, will sort of be more of like a 2-3 years down the road type of guy for this team, considering they have like 14 shooting guards on the roster right now. I think he's going to be tough to get minutes. I think for me, Jonathan Mobo is super interesting. He is like kind of the only guy on the team with his sort of package of skill and size. He's 6'6", 6'7", 7'2" wingspan, really nice ball skill for a guy his size. I think his defensive upside is pretty substantial. I'm not sure how much run he gets this year, but I do think, if I'm going around the roster and I'm just like, okay, which guy do I think can kind of fill certain holes this team has? The Raptors have needs on the wing for defense and it's sort of like backup big. I think Mobo can do both of those things. I think he can be sort of like a small ball, creative big man, work short roll with Quickley, for example, in sort of 2-man game, things like that. And I think on the wing, like his length is going to be like a pretty serious weapon to go and deploy against opposing like lead wings and things like that. His shooting has to come along, but I think he does everything else so well with the rebounding, with the passing, with the defense. I'm pretty in on Mobo, and it might not be this year where it all kind of clicks because rookies are usually really bad. But I do think he's going to lead the team among rookies in minutes this year, I think, more than Walter. I feel pretty confident about that. And I think the package and the sort of upside of a guy like that, a late bloomer type who seems to just be kind of realizing his own ability. I'm pretty into Mobo, and I think just because of the positional need they have on the team for a guy like him, he's going to have opportunities, and I think he's going to run with them.
Yeah, I feel like Abagji is going to get the first opportunity off the bench in that type of position, but ultimately, I don't see it with him. Like I see the defensive
He's not
upside, but
good at
he has
basketball
no
is the thing about
discernible
Ochai
skill on
Agbaji.
offense, especially. Like it's hard to watch.
His defense also is just not what everyone says it is. He's fine to slightly below average, I think. Like he's not especially strong. He's not especially huge. He's like, yeah, I don't know. I feel bad because he seems like a lovely guy, but I just don't think. I think Ochai Agbaji, there's a real chance that like December comes around and he's just never heard from in the rotation again. He's getting Jalen McDaniels minutes, and that's not any place anybody wants to be. But I fear that might be in the cards here for Agbaji.
Yeah, that's not great. Remember how high Utah was, man? How do you think Davion Mitchell is going to fit into this team? Contract year. Sure, he's got something to prove.
I am also quite low on Davion Mitchell. I know a lot of people look at him as like the backup point guard. Don't think he's a point guard. I think he kind of proved that the last couple of years with the Kings that it's just not his bag. And he's also 6'1", like he's small. I think if there is a role for him on this team, it's as a two guard playing in lineups next to Quickley with like bench guys. And maybe Kelly Olynyk's out there and you kind of have a little bit more offense to sort of supplement his lack of offense. If he can shoot like he did last year, he was reasonably okay on threes, 36%. Like teams don't care about him shooting, and so it only has so much effect. But I think Mitchell, like if he's going to make it happen this year, as like a kind of a defensive pest at the two. He probably guards opposing ones if he's out there with Quickley, sure. But I think, offensively, I don't want him running possessions. I think that would be bad. I think, I'd much rather see Jamal Shed run possessions and kind of get a look as a backup point guard because I think he just kind of has that point guard gene kind of in him, like Quickley a little bit more than Mitchell does. But, again, they need defense. They badly need defense on this roster. He brings it, and I think as like an off-ball guard off the bench, I think there is a role for him there. How much he runs with it, I'm not totally sure or terribly confident, but I also need to watch what I say because I think Davion Mitchell's like uncle followed the show's Instagram and like messaged me about it. And I'm like, I can't be mean to the guy. Whoa. I gotta like be like flowery and nice and rosy, but this is not this is a different podcast. So
I guarantee you Davion Mitchell's uncle has never heard of us. I think you're good. Just don't
not yet, baby. He's coming around, but if he finds it, yeah, Davion Mitchell, he's cool, he's good. No, I don't really believe in him a ton, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is his only year in Toronto, but there will be a role for him because they badly need players who can play defense on this team. So we'll see.
I mean, everything is upside and rosy, and everyone's gained 15 pounds before the season starts, right? So we got to see the bright side of things for now, I suppose, with Davion Mitchell.
Yep. Every second round pick is definitely going to hit. There's no question about it. I mean, all the Raptors guys will, of course, because they picked 3 good ones. But yeah, it's the time of the summer where you get really excited about 11th men and hoping they can be something, and usually they're not. By the way, Bruno Fernando, let's go.
Hey, that one's actually fun though. I love Bruno Fernando.
Yeah, he's cool. He seems cool. Yeah.
Love athletic big guys. That's all you need.
Yeah. He might be like the least graceful offensive player I've ever seen, but you don't need graceful when you got like bowling ball shoulders. Yeah. Who needs grace when you're power?
Yeah. It's a man's league.
I wish we were to save that spot for Gershon right now.
Oh man,
that would have been exciting.
Kershaw.
Hey man, there's still time. There's still time. Fernando's not on a guaranteed deal. Maybe Big Gersh is on his way back.
So let's talk about the good times. So going back to 2019, having covered the team, how exciting was it for you to be close to a championship team in that aspect? Did you ever actually expect to see a championship team in Toronto in your lifetime in general? That's maybe not the Argonauts or something, right? How was it back then?
I mean, it was awesome. For me, I had kind of made my peace with I root for a team in a sport that it's just it's not ever going to happen. They're never going to win a championship, and that's fine. I can make my peace with that. There's something charming about rooting for a team that has no shot. It's like being an Aston Villa fan. It's like, you know what? Like you can hang out with your boys, like you root for your boys. The wins are great. The losses, you don't take them too bad because you know they were never winning the whole thing anyway. And then they got Kawhi Leonard, and it was like, oh, okay. And then Kawhi Leonard started playing basketball for the team, and it was like, okay. Like I remember the second game of that season when Kawhi and Danny Green combined for like the double block on Jason Tatum. I was like, oh, okay, this is different. This is a different kind of basketball team now. And yeah, it was a thrill to cover. I was there for the shot. I will never forget it. It was absolute bananas. It's like the most I've ever not maintained professionalism on press row. I don't think anyone did, because how do you just like stoically sit through that? I think you're a sick person if that's how you reacted to that shot. If you're just like, oh, this is gonna make my game recap so good. No, like you got to get excited about that, right? So. Yeah, it was awesome. I didn't get to cover the finals in person, but I did get to write a book because of that. Basically, they're like, "Oh, you're not working. Do you want to help me write a book?" It's like, "All right, sure." So yeah, like there was, it was an awesome ride. It was super fun, most fun I've ever had. And honestly, there's an element of like, you ever have this week where you play a video game or something and you win, you beat the game, and then it's just like, okay, now I can just like go do some side quests. I can go back into that dungeon I didn't beat, and like it's all low stakes. I've beaten Ganon. I'm good. I've like I get to just kind of like relax in the world a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's totally changed how I like am a fan for sure. Like I still like just like swaddle myself with my championship gear every time I get sad. I don't feel the urgency for the team to go and like become a no doubt contender. I just want to watch good basketball basically and have some fun with it, because like they did the thing I never thought they would do. And so it's fine. Like, I can't get too upset when they, lose in the playoffs to the Sixers, or even like trading away guys. Like I love Pascal Siakam. I thought it was dumb the way the whole thing got handled. Like just from start to finish, I think they like totally messed up that trade. But I can't be that mad about it because they won a championship, and like that's always going to be there. And when they get back to the next one, great. I'm sure I'll be super invested in it, obviously. But until then, I'm coasting, man. I'm chilling. It's a nice thing, especially covering the team every day. Like it's nice to not feel like the weight of, oh God, LeBron again. Oh God, they're not going to do it. Oh God, they're going to tear it down and have to start all over again. Like it's nice to just kind of chill and just be like, yeah, they played some fun basketball tonight. They lost, but it was a fun game. It's cool. Move on. And yeah, I'm gonna go rewatch Game 6 against the Bucks again and have myself a great
I
time.
do that at least a couple times a year, I'm not going to lie. But
It's great. It's awesome.
how often do you look back, though, to that off season after the championship and think what could have been? Because we bring back the exact same roster with a full roster of really talented players. Hopefully, bring
hmm
Kawhi back at that point. And then you're bringing back OG, who didn't even play during the playoffs, and how good that team could have
hmm
been, right? It could have been a dynasty potentially, right?
I mean, for 1 year, and then Kawhi, his legs stop working. And like this is the thing with it, right? Is that makes me feel like it sucks what's happened to Kawhi. An absolute delight of a player to watch. Like the most incredible player I've ever gotten to see play for the team I like. He's amazing, but the reality is he's just not been on the floor. And I think the Raptors would be, I don't think it's even questionable. Like they would be in a worse predicament as a franchise if Kawhi Leonard stuck around. Maybe they win that title in the bubble. the fake title that the Lakers should not feel proud about. Actually, the real fake title is the one after the year 2021, where the Suns made the finals and DeAndre Ayton looked like a real player. Of course, that's a fake season.
Oh my goodness! I was not expecting DeAndre Ayton mentions whatsoever today. Come on, man.
Hopefully, his dad is not going to listen to the podcast.
I know, minding his own business, iced into his home in Portland, can't get to the game. Yeah, but yeah, I think to answer your question, yeah, like they probably win the title the following year. Hell, they maybe win the title if COVID doesn't happen and they just go into the playoffs with Pascal Siakam having played basketball in the last 5 months. Like they took the Celtics to 7. I think they probably beat the Heat. Maybe not. Maybe the pixie dust on Jimmy Butler was just not going to be overcome by anybody that year. But I think the Raptors were objectively the better team than that Heat team was, and they beat that Lakers team. I'm sorry, they just do. Just like the guile that team had, the sort of free spirit they played with, knowing they had won the title, knowing they were doing this kick-ass title defense. I think they had the juice, and I mean that was the year they had like the 15-game winning streak and just looked unstoppable for stretches. That team is my favorite Raptors team of all time. The pre-COVID shutdown Raptors of 2019-20, the slam cover, Serge Ibaka and OG Anunoby doing their thing. Like that team was incredible. Kyle Lowry bringing like them back from down 30 against the Mavs with like Terrence Davis and Rondé Hollis Jefferson. They're like that season was incredible, and I don't think I'd honestly take that season back. I think it's fine the way things happened with Kawhi. There's almost like an element of it's like you very rarely get like a perfect story in sports. There's usually some kind of sad afterword or whatever. But the Raptors winning the title with Kawhi, that was perfect. Like they had the whole run up with DeMar and Kyle. They make this big trade. They know it's maybe a 1-year thing. They actually win the title with all that pressure, knowing it's probably a 1-year thing. And then they get to have this really cool title defense season without Kawhi that kind of validates all the guys they had with that, they didn't need Kawhi to be a great team. They needed him to be a championship team, sure, but it validated all of those guys who stuck around for that following year and everything that they had done. I think it's a perfect kind of like it's a very rare thing in sports fandom to feel like you got a really perfect narrative told. And I think they kind of did there. And yeah, the last few years have sucked, but I think that would be pretty rough if Kawhi Leonard had stuck around and went through the injury stuff and you dealt with all the contracts and the sort of the weirdness. You probably don't get Scotty Barnes. Like I think they're in a better spot now. I think it's fine, and I think there's a lot to be said for just kind of going out on a high note, right? Like that. There was just they won the title. He laughed at the parade, and then he was gone. And I think there's something about that that's going to age really nicely as time goes on.
So I'm a big Nuggets fan, and the whole narrative thing, the whole like weight off your shoulders, all this is really resonating. Until you talked about the whole part about like the story just ending properly, because my story is ending with like Jamal Murray going to Team Canada, being like fat and out of shape, and just going downhill from there. But otherwise, I'm totally on board with everything.
Yeah, man. Look, that's the thing, right? Like the Warriors, like they kind of got their perfect fairy tale ending with that last title after KD, but the last couple of years, total disaster, and certainly like put a bit of a cloud over the back part of that era. Like very rarely do championship teams like age gracefully. It's kind of not how the league is set up. And the Raptors kind of got this weird confluence of things that kind of allowed it to happen. And yeah, I love the Nuggets too. They are like my second team because Nikola Jokic is the greatest player I've ever watched play basketball. Not saying he's the best player ever, but I've just never had more fun watching a player play. And I'm bummed with how that thing's going. And the Stan Kroenke should be forced to sell the team to someone who's going to be a real owner and pay for the championship team. I say
that would be nice. That would be very nice.
Would be nice. Really, really hoping Julian Strother is something.
Yeah,
they are too.
All of like 20% of Denver is also hoping that, because let's be real, they don't care about the Nuggets. Let's move on to some like quick hitters, some rapid fire.
Yeah,
top 5 Raptors of all time. I mean, you can take this however you want. Your favorite, or just like whatever. What do you got?
Yeah, my favorites. I'll go my favorites because I think like the actual top 5 is kind of chalk and not interesting. Personal 5, it's Kyle Lowry. He's incredible. He's the guy who was the best player on my favorite teams ever. He was amazing. Just point guard who had all of the sort of gumption you want from your point guard. Total asshole, the best. I Beyond that, Serge Ibaka, I think the last few years in Toronto really was like, okay, like this guy's an all-timer for me. The sort of what he did in Game 7 against the Sixers, hitting that like three in Ben Simmons' eye. Just beautiful stuff. One of the only guys who wasn't scared in that game, on either team. Awesome. Love Serge Ibaka. Super cool. And I think he's going to be kind of like in the Raptors ether for a long time. Pascal Siakam, super huge Pascal guy. Another one of those guys who, when you cover the team every day and you get to cover guys like when they come into the league through their careers, it's like a super satisfying thing. And so Pascal's always going to hold a special place in my heart. I also love like cool playmaking fours. It's another play style I like a lot. Picture here. Am I pointing right?
Oh, yeah.
Terrence Ross. He is without a doubt in my top 5. I love guys who do cool dunks. The 51-point game is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. This was like the year I kind of got back into the team after kind of checking out for a few years while I was at school in Ottawa. I love Terrence Ross. He's going to figure it out one of these days. It's going to happen. It's all going to come together. Frankly, the most talented player to ever play basketball. He just didn't put it all on display all the time because he didn't want to be unfair to the rest of the league.
Is he still in the league?
No,
he retired last year. And he's doing some broadcast stuff. But he seems like he's living his best life too. He's just like playing video games and reading comics and doing some Magic broadcasts. Big fan of Terrence Ross, cool guy. And I mean that dunk on Kenneth Faried. I actually am thinking of getting a tattoo of that dunk on me someday. It's like my favorite dunk ever.
Like actually,
I'm a man who loves dunks. And
like you're actually considering
which part of your body?
Legitimately, yeah. Like. Probably like the leg, or something like that. Legitimately, it's like it's in the works.
Like right on the calf.
No, like on the thigh, like on the
pull up the shorts a bit when you're playing ball. Give you a little extra motivation.
It's like and you can see Terrence Ross dunking on Kenneth Faried when I decidedly don't dunk on whoever is in front of me. And then last, this is tough. I mean, it's probably Vince. He's the guy who made me a fan. And I know there's hard feelings there for some. I think the Raptors were kind of a trash organization and kind of deserve what happened to them when he left. And, you want to keep your best player happy. Maybe don't draft Rafael LaRusso. Just an idea, but that's just me. I'll always be a Vince guy, and I'm excited for what should be like some celebration of him this year for the 30th season as well. So that's my top 5.
Actually, Josh, I never asked you this. How do you feel about Vince? Are you okay with Vince now?
I was never a fan, to be honest. I know that's sacrilegious. But when I was coming up in the
I don't like dunks. I don't like the most popular player in the NBA.
I was a dumb kid.
Antagonist of like Mike. Who needs?
I was a stupid kid. I was rooted against all the teams that my friends were rooting for. So the fact that I was always go over to my friend's place and be cheering for the Raptors, and I was just like, I don't like this team. And then all of a sudden, I became a massive fan.
You're like, give me the
years
Bucks.
later. What's that?
You're like, give me the Bucks with Gary Payton. I like that team.
No, I was a KG guy growing up, so that was my team. I liked being miserable. So
I loved KG too until he got traded to the Celtics, and then it was really upsetting.
That was difficult,
can't
but
like him. He's on the Celtics.
My love for KG just override that. So that post game interview where there's actual emotion, unlike Jason Tatum, and he wasn't just reciting catchphrases, was unbelievable, and probably my favorite basketball moment ever. So.
My favorite basketball moment is all of the moments Jason Tatum hasn't played in the Olympics.
Come on, man.
Yes.
That guy's got.
Come on.
He's got to be like an AI robot.
Yeah, Jason Tatum is like the store brand good basketball player. He does nothing interesting. He's just good at basketball. He's got no flavor. He does this sort of sad Kobe cosplay thing sometimes. Jason Tatum, the most sauceless superstar I think I can ever recall.
Okay, I've got to ask you this. What do you feel about the faux media outrage with Jason Tatum not playing minutes in the first couple of games? Like, who cares? It's the Olympics. Like, what are we doing here?
I could not possibly care less. I mean, it's all from like the Boston media people who I care less about. Sure. Like, also, look, they're probably going to win the tournament anyway. Yeah, they just got by Serbia, but you know why they got by Serbia? It's because KD and Steph and LeBron all decided we're going to old man our way to this win, and they're still the best. And I think in a tournament where they're probably going to win anyway, let the guys who aren't going to be here in 4 years do it, right? Like Tatum will have his time when he's older. If he, I know he's like 14 or whatever his age is, but like he'll have his time. Just let the old dudes do it. I had a blast watching the old guys just like go cook. It was like watching the guys who defined the last era of basketball in my life winning an Olympic game. It rocked, and I did not need Jason Tatum messing that up.
Yeah, he'll have his time leading the U.S. to a sixth place finish in 2028.
Oh yeah, he'll be inciting the next Redeem team with his when he's taken over for sure.
His jump shot is so broken right now too. Like I don't think he's hit one the entire Olympic run so far. He hasn't played much, mind you.
Yeah,
But
well,
still.
that would require him to play minutes, which he cannot do because why would you play him over LeBron or KD or any of them? Frankly, yeah. We don't got to talk more about Jason Tatum. We're making Peter mad. He apparently loves Jason Tatum.
I'm very indifferent on Jason Tatum. I just don't care. Like,
I mean, that's actually probably the right
yeah.
thing to feel about Jason Tatum.
He just is, He's a good player.
Yeah, sure.
He's not going to be someone I want to watch, but like I respect it.
Yeah.
Whatever. Move on, Josh.
The Celtics just like bum me out with just like I know it's the right way to play basketball, but like ruthless efficiency ball, not the most fun ball to watch in the world.
So
I did not have the
boring.
best time. Yeah. Oh, another drive and kick for three. Huh? Bang.
Yeah, it's her 60th 3-point attempt of the game. Hooray.
Yeah.
Hooray basketball.
What are they? Serbia trying to beat the US?
But the Serbians are cool.
That's
the
true.
difference.
Bogdan Bogdanovic, by the way, I think might be like the baddest MFer in all of basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Like that guy is mean and trash talky and yeah, he scares me a little bit.
He's seen some shit. Bogdan has definitely seen some shit, like some real shit.
100%. Yeah.
Josh, you want the next one?
What is your rec league or pickup game comparison when you're playing?
I'm gonna flip this one on Peter. Peter, who do I play like? For those who don't know, Peter and I play pickup pretty regularly. You're not going to offend me. I know I'm trash. So yeah, who do you have? I have one, but I want to hear what you think.
I'd say like when Marcus Morris was good. Like when Marcus Morris didn't have a broken jumper for those like 2 or 3 years.
That's a high compliment.
All right.
It's actually not bad, right? Like,
you think I can defend? Like
Marcus Morris couldn't defend.
Just peaky, kind of.
No, he can stay. Like,
he's all right.
No. Marcus Morris was never a good defender. Okay.
Okay, can't defend. All right, got it.
You're fine. You're fine at defense. You can shoot. You're not gonna dribble. You're not gonna like set anything up like crazy. But
no.
If I get you the ball, you're gonna throw it up there, and it's probably gonna go in. I like that.
All right. I've never considered myself having any kind of like power game, and I've always considered the Morai to be like powerful guys. Maybe that's wrong. So a guy I pick up a few months back said I play like Dario Saric, which is hilarious and like sicko stuff.
Wow.
I don't think that's like totally wrong. I think I have like a blend of like movement shooter and like no bag post up big is kind of my blend. I used to go like 2016 Raptors Louis Scola as my comp.
Wow.
But I think it's probably more like Saric mixed with, honestly, like I feel like I kind of sometimes play like Grady Dick, just like running for the sake of running and then shooting whenever I can and not hitting them as well. But I shoot like early rookie year Grady Dick. How about that?
Wow.
From 3-point line to 3-point line. I think Peter's like rookie year Isak Bonga.
Come on.
Just complete garbage.
Isak Bonga?
Shoots a lot of threes. Shot looks okay, but just never goes in.
Couldn't even use Isak Bonga that like got his way out of the league. It had to be rookie year. So
definitely not Isak Bonga right now.
Maybe.
Switching threes in the fourth quarter. No chance.
See, I think Peter's got some game. I think you're a much better defender than I am.
I've
you're
like never heard that before. Never in my life.
No.
Defender.
That's how bad a defender I am. I think you have like,
You know what?
I don't want to say Klay Thompson because he's good.
Yeah, no. You know who I actually got a lot
But,
of
like-
when we were growing up? Raja Bell.
What's that? Interesting. I kind of like
Raja
that.
Bell.
That's not bad
Like
at
Raja
all.
Bell with Phoenix.
Raja Bell. Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe a little
God.
Morris Peterson. I think there's some Morris Peterson in there.
I'll take Mo Pete.
Yeah. Although I know you're dealing with an injury. Mo Pete never got hurt, so out the window.
Yeah, sorry, I'll take, yeah. Can't do anything about that.
I think you're the only person saying you're Raja Bell in the Suns. He was actually really good back then.
Dude, I was like,
I mean,
I was decently
when
athletic when we were younger, okay? Come on, man.
when you're doing these comps, it's always with the caveat of like a bad version of
Oh, of course.
this player. So like,
I just think very
a
lowly
bad
of Peter's
version
game,
of
though.
2016 Louis Scola.
Oh yeah, I just think very lowly of Peter and his footwork, especially in the post. He traveled it on every single possession. He was inside the 3-point line, and then he'd argue for like hours afterwards.
We'll take that off pod, but all I
I
can
will
say
say,
is
you give
every social media clip
go ahead.
asking travel or not makes my footwork impeccable nowadays. Maybe not in 2008, but in 2024, my footwork is impeccable.
Yeah, the stuff they can
He's
get away
scared
with
of
now is
being
totally
called
different.
out by the internet. Love it. Fear of getting roasted.
Yeah, man. Can't
I
do
will
that.
say, like, Peter and I, we do kind of play similarly, I think, like where we often are like ships crossing in the night as we're like cutting baseline corner to corner and flying around and taking our threes and not taking any twos. It's roll Peter and I out with like a ball handler, a big, and like another wing,
Money.
and we'll run the floor.
Money.
Like we've done it. We have done it. It has to be a good ball handler, but we've done it.
Money. Josh. Thank you very much.
Not back in the day. Maybe things have changed since then.
I'm a more mature player, man.
AKA
Mine was
old. You're old now.
Yeah, that's all it really is. I'm just not as reckless as I used to be. Oh boy. Sean, where can everyone find your work?
Yeah, Locked On Raptors podcast on all the audio apps. You can find it on YouTube as well. I don't do a ton on Twitter anymore, but I'm there at Woodley Sean if you want. I usually just post like my podcast episodes, and sometimes if a game is happening that's pissing me off, a la that Canada-France game, I'll do some tweets. But for the most part, find me over there on like Instagram. The show's there as well, and the podcast has a Discord too. If you want to come hang out in the Locked On Raptors Discord, it's a good place. It's a fun little hangout. It's free to join. Link in the description of our podcast every day if you want to join that. So thanks for having me, guys. It was a blast.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. I want to thank everyone for listening. Please remember, rate and subscribe. Find us on all the major podcast platforms. We're on all the socials: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, X. And until next time, peace.